I do have on my website, paparelli.com, I did a talk like this on the 7 characteristics of successful entrepreneurs. So these are the things over my years of experience I look for in entrepreneurs, or I've seen that they all had. But as you think about entrepreneurism, I can tell you, you know in your heart right now if you're an entrepreneur or not. You know it right now. Not everyone is. And Shakespeare had a great quote which said, "To thine own self be true." Because if you're an entrepreneur and you're afraid to make that move because you know what you're called, but you're afraid to do it, and you're in a corporate environment, you're going to be dying. You might be suffering from depression because you're not where you need to be. On the other hand, if you say, "I'm just going to do it. I think I should do it," but you don't really know if you are that entrepreneur. You don't know in your heart of hearts. You might find yourself in a very uncomfortable position and actually facing failure because you're focused on the fear, not the success. It's just the way you're built. The second thing I look for besides this destiny is I look for within the entrepreneur good interpersonal skills. Because this, again, is a long-term relationship. It's like a marriage. Remember, once you put the money in, everybody wants to exit in 3 years. Sometimes I was in Silicon Valley, and some of the VCs said, "Yeah, we want to be out ideally in 3 years, in and out. We want to get, it could take 5 to 7. We're in some deals that are 12 years long and still going." Because you don't know. You don't know. You're taking a shot. So long-term, because of the long-term relationship, what I'm looking to is I'm looking to be attracted to the entrepreneur. Now remember, these are personal criteria, okay? It doesn't mean that they're everyone's criteria. I'm not writing a book on this and how you should do it. I'm just sharing what I do. So I have to be attracted to the entrepreneur. Are they professional? Are they likable? Is there maturity about them? Is there depth and interest about them? And I look for something that I call secret transparency. So they're telling you everything. They just they just wear it on their sleeve. I mean, it's just they can't wait to share their lives with you at any level. But there's a complexity about them that's intriguing. That the longer you know them, the more you realize there's more there. You can't figure them out in a couple of meetings. They're just really interesting, great people to be around. I think we see that now with some of these very high-profile entrepreneurs like a Steve Jobs. I was out and visiting the VP of Sales at Apple while I was out in California, and a lot of the conversation was about Steve Jobs because he has this interest and complexity about him. Even this guy working him for 10 years looks and goes, "Wow, I still don't know these things, and I'm report to him." You know? And that's what's interesting about these entrepreneurs, this secret transparency. So again, I have to be attracted to them, and I have to see this in them because we're getting married. And he has to feel the same way. Don't just take my money if you don't like me. Third thing is intelligence, okay? Intelligence. I learned this, that intelligence is very important, particularly in this information technology sector that we're in. I sometimes, if I'm a little confused or with regard to somebody, I might send them to a behavioral psychologist that I use. And he taught me something. He said the single most powerful determining factor of success is intelligence. So the smarter you are, the better your chances of succeeding. This is a room full of intelligent people. All right? So intelligence is a great indicator of future success because you're intelligent enough to see things that other people don't see sooner, and you're intelligent enough to make decisions to move on them. And that's what needs to happen in a new venture. So what I try to do is I try to determine this in conversation. I try to have conversations at deeper levels on a broader set of interests just to see where their minds go and how they think. And I specifically look for someone who's a continuous learner. Someone who what I call is a wisdom seeker. Because I'll talk to some people and they'll present their business to me and I'll say, you know, based on my experience, these markets that you're talking about going into, before I'm halfway through, they're telling me I'm wrong. So they're not good listeners, and they're not willing to learn from my experience and my wisdom. I don't know, I'm older, I'm irrelevant, or whatever the reason is, but I'm looking for wisdom seekers. They want experiential advice. So those are the first three. And the fourth one is, okay, what's this person's foundation? His character and his values. Very important to me. Because when you're really pressed, and we're going to be pressed in a startup, you know, everything doesn't go right. In fact, lots of things go wrong. So when really pressed, this is where you go. You go back to your character and your values. That's when they all sort of show up. So I want to know what those are. And one of the first things that I look for is what I call God-fearing and man-loving. I look for someone who does fear God. And the reason is because that means they know they're not God. I can deal with that. I can deal that there is some higher power, that there's someone they're going to submit to besides just themselves. I know best. I can't deal. When I have somebody that's like that, then they're really kings and dictators. And they'll take your money, and they'll take my money, and I've been in those deals, and they listen to no one. They know best. They run their own path. That's not where we're going to be. The other start is man-loving. You want to build a company, you better love people. People will work for you because you care about them. That's why they work for you. That's why they tie into your vision long term, and that's why they'll stay with you, because you care about them. So I look for God-fearing and man-loving. The other I look for in this values and character, is this person trying to build something, or is this trying to build wealth? If it's all about the money, after hitting the wall a couple of times, they'll go find something else to do. If it's about building, because they have a vision, they have to build this thing, they never give up. Ever. They might run out of money and the investors go away. They never stop doing what they're doing. It's just who they are. It's about building. It's not about building wealth. Wealth comes from this right attitude. And then the last thing I look for in values and character is, many of you are too young for this movie. Maybe Jim, maybe you saw this movie, Jim. I don't know. I'm going to pick on you here a little bit. Did you see this movie called Verbrugge the Greek with Anthony Quinn? Anybody ever hear that movie? Okay, good, okay. A lot of people haven't never heard of Anthony Quinn.
We're a rich man.
No?
Not that raise of it. Go ahead.
That wasn't it? Okay, that's a different movie. What movie is that, If I Were a Rich Man? Huh? Fiddler on the Roof. You're getting your movies mixed up. But Zorba the Greek, one of the things he says, this reporter who's got this, wants to hire Zorba, he said, you know, I never asked you, are you married? I don't know if you remember this part from the movie, and the guy says, Zorba says, am I married? Is not a man stupid? He says, I have a wife, a kid. He says, I have the house, I have the full catastrophe. That was his answer. He was sort of a bit of a philosopher, which was what made the movie entertaining, his character. And that's what I look for. I do look for the wife, kids, house, cars, college. I look for that. And the reason is because they'll stay committed. They have to succeed because they have all this going on in their life. They have all these, what I call, ladders leaning against them. And that's the person that's attractive to me. That's probably true that I'm not investing in 21-year-olds that are coming out of Georgia Tech. And I'm not. And one of the reasons I'm not is back in the, I'll never forget this one, as long as I live, is back in the, I'm going to tell this story later. I'm going to get into it because we're going to circle around to this again, so I'm not going to go off on the sideline here. The other thing I look for is, besides them having this responsibility in life, is I see how they're managing it. Have they kept their financial affairs in order? Now, if that person has kept their financial affairs in order, then probably if I'm going to put money into a business, they'll probably keep their financial affairs in order. If there are people who are sitting with $30,000 or $40,000 in credit card debt, and that might be a person who's probably going to spend well ahead of his revenue, which is going to put us in a hole, which means we've got to raise more money. So there's things that I look for. So those are the 4 criteria that I look for in an entrepreneur. The first is it his calling, his destiny? You know, is there an attractiveness, a personal attractiveness, something that I say, well, when I wake up in the morning and I know I have a meeting with whoever it is, this entrepreneur, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sitting there, and you've had these meetings where you get up in the morning and you say, I got a meeting with Bob today. It's only 45 minutes long. I'm going to see if I can hold my tongue that long, okay? Or whatever it is. We all have those people in our lives. If you're married to somebody, you don't want to get up like that. You want to say, oh, I'm going to go see Bob. How great. It's going to be a good day. You look forward to it, and that's why the attractiveness is important. The intelligence has to be there, and also the character and values. So those are the 4 things. Then I get into the economic opportunity. And again, remember, this is me. This is my money. This is the way I invest. The first economic opportunity criteria that I use is this a B2B? Is this business to business? Okay. The bigger the target business, as far as I'm concerned, the better. I have many people who come to me and say, man, I look at this low end of the market, there is such a need there for, name the thing, a service or a product, whatever. So there's a huge need. And here's what I'm going to do to fill that need. And I made the comment to people, a lot of people, I say, never confuse a need with the ability to pay. So what I like is, I have a very simple business principle when it comes to the economic criteria. Sell to people who have money. I mean, that just sounds stupid, right? But if I'm saying, if the Facebook guy came to me and said, oh, look, we're going to be doing there's a lot of, I just went to a launch competition in San Francisco, and there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of social networking and vertical markets and different sectors, a lot of buying and selling that's going on. But I don't know that, these businesses, they're never going to make money. There's never, because they're not selling to people with money. They're selling to people with needs who don't have money. If I'm in the business of selling Mercedes-Benz, I'm not going to say, there's a lot of people. There's more people who make less than $10,000 or less than $50,000, let's say, in this world. So let me do this. I'm going to target them rather than the top 5%. Well, you're not going to sell a lot of Mercedes-Benz because those people would like one, but they can't afford one. So, principle 1, business to business, and it has to be selling to people with money. I love the Fortune 500. I love the Fortune 500. I think they're just wonderful people. A lot of you work for some of those people. It's great. They all have money. Culturally consistent is the second one, the economic opportunity I look for. I sometimes have people come to me and they say, we are going to change the way Coca-Cola sells soda. And I go, not with my money. There's a lot of businesses that say, we're going to change the process, if you will, of the way business is done in this particular industry. Whew. Whew. Now, if you could do it, wow, yeah. Now, if someone has that type of idea, I don't see any value in it. Not true. Remember, I'm not investing in that. And the reason is because if you're going to change a culture, how much money is that going to take? That's the question. I don't have unlimited funds. That's one of my constraints. I have this much money to get this company started. And if this company that, based on his vision, is going to take this much money, it's not for me. So that doesn't mean it's bad. It just says it doesn't work for me. That's what I'm saying, not with my money. It could be with your money because you got deeper pockets. Yeah. Is an angel investor interested in incremental things or rather than grandiose things? And I would say that's a good question. That depends on the investor. One of the things that I've done and with this last deal I'm in, I've kind of broken that rule, by the way. That's why I say never, never say always, okay? Is the way I made my money is I stayed under the radar of the VCs. So I said, I want to get into a business that's going to get to consistent positive cash flow on the amount of money that I can afford to put, or I think that should be put into this venture. Now, that's limited me, because that means that I might be building a business that's going to be 10 to 15 million in revenue, and then it sort of sells. Because now, when you look at VCs, they're looking to put $15 million in a business. Okay, I'm looking to sell a business for $15 million would be great for me. Selling a business for $5 million would be great, depending on what you own. Now, there's other angels in town. What they do is they say, I'm going to put money in anticipation of it needing a lot more money from VCs. So I'll get it out of the ground, and then we'll go and we'll help the entrepreneur seek VC funding, okay? It's just two different philosophies is all it is. So you just need to know where you're headed, because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to say it's going to take $1 million to get this thing to where it needs to be, and it winds up being a $10 million number. No, those things can die in the desert, okay, if it's not the right business. So you got to be careful. So that's the culturally consistent. You know, an example I can give you too is when I invest. Okay, I look to invest when there is clearly a market buying. See, because there's always room, particularly in the services sector, there's always room for another entrant into the sector. Now, if we look at, for example, search, you know, we're all familiar. We're all using Google for search. Okay, how many people here are using Yahoo for search? That's not good. How many people use Google for search? All right, great, almost everybody. So what you have is, if you look back, it all started with Netscape. They went public on zero revenue. It was the first company in the history of the world to ever do that. Well, Netscape started it. You don't see Netscape anywhere now. Then Yahoo picked up and improved upon the model, and they became real hot. And now Google's it. They own the whole sector. Who's going to take down Google at this point? So when are you when am I as an angel investing? You know, now everybody made money along the way. Some people lost a lot of money. The other thing is we see that AOL came out this is back in the dial-up modem days of the 80s, and they actually invented this whole thing called chat, right? You guys probably never were AOL users, but they really started the whole chat thing. That whole SMS sort of instant messaging, if you will. And then it was picked up by MySpace, and that became huge. And now who's the winner? Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook. Anybody here on MySpace anymore? No. It's amazing how we sort of leave. But once that sector's established, so then you could say, so when do you invest? Do you want to be the AOL investor, or do you want to be the Facebook investor? All right? I choose to be later on, because I think it actually reduces my risk, even though it reduces my potential return. But it takes less money to get that going. So that's what I look for. That's the cultural consistency. The third one that I look for in the economic opportunity is the entrepreneur intimately involved in the product or service? Does the person love this product or service? Okay, are they passionate about it? All right. So there has to be this enthusiasm, and the way that happens is that means that they have probably got experience in that area. All right, very important. You know, how did they get to the idea? Was it logical and experiential, or were they one day just sort of wake up, or they saw something while they were on the beach and said, "Oh, I know what people need." You know, that's what we think the entrepreneur is. These are inventors. They're not entrepreneurs. They'll say, oh, there's a good idea, or there's a good idea. No experience to get them there. They just had an idea, and I bet you can make a lot of money with that. Well, that's not what I look for. I look for somebody who has the experience.